And you go live. No?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start.
Yes.
So namaste, and again a very warm welcome to everybody who's present on this last day of this workshop on Introduction to Traditional Knowledge, Intellectual Property and People's Rights. So I sincerely hope that this has been a fantastic learning experience for everybody. And we have the grand finale with Vishwajanani ji, who will do a presentation, initially a half-an-hour presentation to possibly summarize whatever has happened and give us tips to go forward. And after that, there will be the assessment that will be conducted by Anilji and Piyushi from the IPS division. Together, they will do it. So with these few words, we'll start with a mantra and then we'll continue. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Over to you, Dr. Vishwajanani ji, for the session.
Sure. Thanks so much, Anuradha. I guess all of us are quite excited. Today is the last day of the workshop, the second batch, and I'm really very glad that we have a lot of participants. I'd like to also share that it has been a learning for us as well. We may have imparted a little bit of our knowledge, but to us personally, each of us have benefited from this workshop. I'm truly glad for your warm support. I strongly believe that there's still more room because learning is a lifelong process, and we will continue this journey for the next days or years to come. So while I say that, let me go ahead and share my presentation. Today, being the last day of the workshop, what we thought is that we will cover something that has inspired based on traditional knowledge. So why did we do this workshop over the last 4 days? Is what I think needs to be summarized, because we talked about traditional knowledge, we talked about the expanse of it, we talked about the fundamentals of intellectual property rights. We also talked about protection of traditional knowledge per se, both the defensive and positive mechanisms. We also touched upon the ethical aspects, what needs to be done when we are handling and working with the yet undisclosed traditional knowledge, the oral traditional knowledge, or the indigenous traditional knowledge, so to speak. Today, what we thought is that, while we have given you an overview, we will talk about what is traditional knowledge, how has traditional knowledge inspired innovations, and considering that many of us are interested in traditional knowledge in terms of new R&D, in terms of newer innovations, in terms of perhaps newer trade and commercial products, we thought it would be nice to kind of sum up this workshop with this particular topic. This will be briefly for about 20-25 minutes, then we will close it. We will then start the workshop. The link for the test, the link for the test will be provided on this platform in the chat box by my colleague, Mr. Anil, and as well as PhD from the IKS division. You are supposed to access that particular link and then take up the test. And as we had mentioned previously, we will be providing participation certificates to everybody who has joined us on this workshop. And whoever meets the criteria of the test results will all be given a merit certificate. So back to day 5 of the workshop, the last day of the workshop. I'm sure you would be as excited as I to close this particular session. So here, why are we interested in TK-inspired innovations? As I had mentioned previously as well, our traditions and culture play a very important role in our sustainability and also in terms of our socio-economic growth. And I'm sure all of you are aware of the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them. And there's a beautiful report given by this United Cities and Local Governments, the UCLG, of May 2018, that talks about the relevance of culture in each of the Sustainable Development Goals. I would urge you to go please look that up. But as I confirm and then reiterate that, our traditions, our culture for even achieving the goals set on the sustainable development, it is very important to see how it has actually worked in many of the countries. In this particular session today, I will also be giving a lot of international examples. So to say that, it's not just India which is rich with traditional knowledge. There are many, many countries across the world which have very rich traditional knowledge, and how are these countries handling traditional knowledge. So let me just give you a few examples today. The first one is the Sustainable Development Goal, which is about ending poverty in all its forms everywhere. I'd like to give you an example of the Pekalongan from Indonesia. It is the city called the city of Batik. I'm sure many of you understand the Batik, textiles, and this particular city is known for this traditional textiles sector in Indonesia. It not only contributes to generating employment mainly based on Batik, but it is also having a huge number of women employees associated with this particular textile sector, 60% of them. So what has Indonesia done is that they have used this particular model city to promote one traditional knowledge of their country, that is the Batik traditional textile sector. And this is how, it is going to contribute to eradicating poverty of this particular section of people when it concerns the sustainable development goals. So this particular example can be emulated by every other country, every other city and district, where each of the district and city associated with countries of rich traditional knowledge can promote their own traditions and culture. The second point is on the goal number 2, which is on ending hunger and achieving food security and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture. There's a city called Seferihisar in Turkey, which promotes street swapping. So there is a particular festival called the Seed Swap Festival that enables the local producers and farmers to maintain traditional low-cost agricultural practices. It also promotes awareness of the need to preserve sustainable food production and consumption. Many of us, who have been associated with agriculture in India are aware that, we have tried to bring in lot of hybrid varieties into the country from elsewhere. And those varieties are not providing the required productivity in today's context because of the change of the environment, climate, and many other factors. So it becomes very important to maintain and preserve our own traditional varieties while we are progressing with more advanced science and technology interventions. Goal 3 talks about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being. I don't need to explain to the participant who has joined here today about the National Ayush Mission that has been, rolled out across all the states and the UTs of our country. It provides a better access to the Ayush services. It also co-locates the Ayush facilities at the primary health centers, the community health centers, as well as district hospitals. This way, our traditional systems of medicine have got a rejuvenation. Goal 4 is on ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So here I'd like to give you an example from the Jeonju City of South Korea. So here what they have done is they have promoted a project called the Traditional Culture Society. So this Traditional Culture Society provides for integrated education and lifelong learning programs to both children and adults based on their own traditional buildings, intangible heritage, and other cultural assets. So this way we are promoting the socioeconomic development based on our own traditions and culture. This is just to give you a glimpse of how countries are using traditions and culture even in the context of sustainable development goals. All work and no place makes Jack a dull boy and perhaps Jill a dull girl. So let me give you an example of chess. I think the last 2 days we've been hearing or going over the moon. And of course, chess. I think the young boy, 18-year-old Pragnananda, has done very well, competing with a 32-year-old grandmaster of chess from Norwegian country. So here, as everybody has, well agreed and ascertained, chess has originated from India. But look at all the top players, worldwide with the five rankings. There's only Vishwanathan Anand who figures in the top 10. And India is ranked at 5 among the best performing countries in chess. And how did chess originate? The very old information of chess dates back to the Rig Veda, where it is called the Palaka or the game board. Later on in Atharva Veda, it was called the Adi Devana. In Ramayana and Brahmajala Sutta, it is called the Ashtapada, which has 8 into 8 spaces, 64 squares. Then it also kind of got enlarged as the Dasapada, that is 10 into 10 board. Later on, it became the Chaturanga, Shatranj, and now today, everybody world over, we acclaim it as chess. And of course, India has given its due importance of the game. The reason why I thought I will choose chess is to tell that even chess is found to have a role in the sustainable development goals. And why so? In fact, all of you might be aware that we have an International Chess Day on the 20th of July of every year, and it is celebrated worldwide. The reason why chess is being, talked about in the context of the sustainable development goal is that chess is not only, a game, but it has several mathematical notations associated with it. It's a mind game. So what the experts believe is that in terms of the sustainable development goal, chess has a role in strengthening education, realizing gender equality, and also empowering women and girls and fostering inclusive tolerance and mutual understanding and respect. So the inclusivity that we are talking about, the EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion, has a great role and chess has an important role towards contributing to the EDI. 70% of the adult population across the world has played chess at some point or the other. As I said, mathematically, there are more possible games of chess than there are atoms in an observable universe. So that is the vastness of the chess. And I believe you can do a checkmate in just 2 moves. So that is the way, I mean, it's been celebrated. And the oldest living grandmaster had celebrated his 100th birthday in last May 2022. So there are about 2,000 variants of chess that are available currently. And I'm sure all of you do understand that, when we are talking of something like entertainment, there is a lot of mental activity and creativity that contributes to such particular activity. Moving on, another case study of how traditional knowledge has been used for inspiring newer innovations. I go back to a particular example of quinine for malaria. So quinine, all of you are aware that malaria is a mosquito-borne disease and it has been a ravaging disease. It had killed several thousands and millions of people in the 20th century. And it is still believed that about 50% of the world population today live in areas that have high transmission of malaria. Malaria, the word takes from mal and area, that is bad air from Italy. And in earlier days, I believe the way the remedies for malaria were, letting out blood, amputations of the limb, or cutting a hole in the skull so that, the people are cured or they die of malaria. The traditional legend to the whole thing of quinine for malaria goes back to a story that there was an Andean Indian. Okay, this is Andean mountainous from the country Chile. So this particular person was walking through the forest. He had a lot of fever, but still he continued because that was the only way of moving from place to place in those days. He saw a pond of water and in the jungle, but being very thirsty, he went and drank the water. He was scared. After drinking the water, he realized it was very bitter in taste. So, out of sheer fright, he realized that he was sweating extensively and he thought he's now poisoned because of this contaminated water and he was almost hoping to die. But very surprisingly, he over some time he realized that his fever came down and he went and then communicated this information to all his fellow villagers. who thereafter started using the extract of that particular tree. That particular area had a lot of this quina bark trees, and they extracted that and used that particular extract to treat fevers. So that was the first story associated with the use of quina for malaria. Later, there's another one story that has come from Peru, wherein it says the Countess of Chincona, who was Spanish, and also the wife of the Viceroy of Peru, had intermittent fever, which they believed was malaria. And they went to the priest, and the Jesuit priest, they prepared a concoction made with the bark of the Andean tree. And they also added a few other ingredients like clove and rose leaf and other dried plants. And using this particular concoction, the countess was cured of the malaria. So having understood that this particular plant has such a huge role in treating malaria, which had otherwise had no therapy, in 1982, that is in 1630, this was formally recorded. In 1820, the quinine was extracted from the bark of this particular plant and they isolated, and this was done by two French scientists, Pierre Joseph Pelletier and Joseph Caventou. The purified quinine was then replaced the extract, the concoction, and they started using it across all countries. So it was used by the Dutch in Indonesia, by the French in Algeria, British in India, Jamaica, and also the Southeast Asia and West African countries. It is told that between 1848 and 1861, just about 15, 20 years, the British government spent about 6.4 million pounds in importing cinchona bark for its colonial troops. That was the impact of quinine for malaria. But as we start using more and more drugs, you would understand that you would end up having resistant malaria, and that is what happened. But by 1944, the synthetic quinine was made by the American scientists, and this synthetic quinine had fewer side effects than the natural variety. So this quinine is also called as a tool of imperialism that powered the British Empire. So as the story moves along, and to have a more stable version of quinine, the chloroquine was used, but even that created a lot of resistance. So let me move forward with another story of how traditional knowledge once again inspired artemisinin for malaria and as well as the Nobel Prize. I think all of you are aware that this lady, Madam Tu Yu from China, won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for her work on artemisinin. As the story goes, China was asked help from North Vietnam for battling malaria because they had a lot of casualty among the soldiers during the Vietnam War. And they all realized that it was because of malaria, which had already become resistant to chloroquine. So they sought the help of China to see how can we overcome resistant, chloroquine resistant malaria. So none other than their own chairman, the former president of China, Mao Zedong, he launched the project, and the project was called 523 because it was, established, launched on 23rd of May, 1967. So this activity was given to Yu as the project director. And she hails from the Beijing Medical College. She studied modern pharmacology, but along the lines, she also learned to classify medicinal plants, extract active ingredients, and determine even the chemical structures. In addition, between 1959 to 62, she took a full-time course in traditional Chinese medicine so that she would also be trained in traditional medicine in addition to the modern Western methods. In 1969, she was assigned the head of the project. She personally went to Hainan Island, which was, stricken by this chloroquine-resistant malaria. So she returned back to Beijing after this particular stay in this Hainan Island. By that time, 240,000 compounds were tested for anti-malarial properties, and none of it worked. So, with her experience of knowing traditional Chinese medicine, she examined the ancient texts and she identified one particular plant that is called the sweet wormwood. It is the Artemisia annua. And this particular Artemisia annua was known to treat intermittent fevers. Okay, and this intermittent fever is a symptom of malaria. So using this knowledge, she moved forward, and then she isolated one active compound from the wormwood, and it appeared to be effective on malaria-friendly parasites. But when she, tested the extract of the compound, she found it was ineffective. So she went back to the ancient text, and the concern was that why is this active ingredient not working? So she realized by boiling the process in which there was a lot of boiling, the active ingredient got damaged. So she went back and then she tried another preparation. This time she used an ether-based solvent. So when she extracted this with the ether-based solvent, she found that that extract had high effectiveness on malaria in mice and monkey models. So not only that, she and two of her colleagues personally took it to make sure that they are able to cure and treat malaria. And then she tested on 21 patients and all of them recovered. So this was all done in 1971. 72, the active ingredient of artemisinin called the quin also was distilled and the findings were shared only in Chinese. Not until 1979, the work was published in English. In 1981, the information reached the WHO, the World Bank, and the United Nations, and she was invited to present her findings of Artemisia annova on malaria, especially the resistant malaria, during 1981. In 2006, the WHO recommended Artemisia annova as the first-line treatment for uncomplicated Plasmodium falciparum malaria. And only in 2015, she won the Nobel Prize. So just to kind of give you the timelines, she started her work in 1969 as a project leader. It was only in 2015 she won the Nobel Prize. But the continued activity and her focus enabled her to get where she could be, even with the Nobel Prize. But she credited the discovery of artemisinin as a gift from traditional Chinese medicine to the world. And while she was very proud of her own activity, she kind of credited all the people and as well as the traditional medicine to the betterment of better healthcare across the world. I'll change gears. I think I gave you an example of game chess. I gave you an example of medicine. And now I will give you a very exciting example of man-made glaciers or artificial glaciers, which have yet again been inspired by traditional knowledge. So artificial glaciers or man-made glaciers are not something which are very uncommon, especially in the Hindu Kush region of the ancient India. So now parts of Pakistan, especially the Baltistan and Gilgit region, and some parts of Ladakh as well, and of course in Afghanistan as well. And here, although many of the people nowadays say that they saw their elders performing it in their childhood, and nothing could be seen now, but there are certain reports that say that this particular practice is still being followed. The way the man-made glaciers are made are very tedious and prolonged, and it is carried out in 3 stages. But then, why am I talking about traditional knowledge in the context of so many reports and, something that appears to be very scientific? So there is a story here that, this particular man-made glacier was built because, from across the region of maybe Afghanistan, the Baltistan and Gilgit region, they were these invaders, especially Genghis Khan, who was trying to come into the Indian region. And to kind of keep him at bay, the artificial glaciers were built. And the people there followed a very, very systematic and methodical way of building these artificial glaciers. Again, there is one another story, traditional legend that says that during this time that Genghis Khan was coming into India, there were a lot of livelihoods that were lost, especially men were killed and thrown. And this affected the children and the women. So at one point of time, as the story goes, a woman who was grieving for her husband who was killed during this war went up to one of these high ranges, and out of sheer frustration of having a very distressed life, in those days they would carry water in bottles made of ash guards and similar such guards, which had a high protection in terms of a thick pericarp. So she threw the ash guard, the water bottle out, and as the legend goes, that is when the artificial glaciers started to build, and that protected the people across the Indian region from the invasion of Genghis Khan and his army. Immaterial of what the legend says, that the practice still continues, holds a lot of merit. And as I said, it is a very methodical way in which these artificial glaciers are built. First thing is the people there, the locals, they identify the site. They realize that it should be beyond the range of vegetation. The sunny side, I mean, that particular site should not face the sunny side because otherwise the glacier would melt, and it should not also have loose sediment, shale or soft soil because otherwise it will flow down. So this is how methodical they are in identifying the site for building the artificial glacier as well. Then they collect the necessary material. What do? First thing is they identify glaciers which are male and female. Okay, they call it Posho and Mosho, and many other names are also there. So they identify glaciers, and in fact, the masculine glacier is supposed to be white, whereas the feminine glacier is supposed to be dark or black in color. They add hay to it, they add dried pine needles to it, they add salt to it, then they add cloth, twigs, kafood, charcoal, and then they bring in large quantities of compressed snow also. And they identify areas which has rock cover, it has good altitude, and an aspect that is, not sun facing. And this is a site which has already an in situ ice making. So once this kind of methodical survey is done and the ice is brought, the artificial glaciers are built. As the legend goes, the local people even now they walk almost like 30 to 40 kilometers carrying these kiltas with all these ice from the two glaciers, the masculine and feminine glacier. The belief that they have is women can't carry that, and also men who carry that cannot keep those kiltas down. They have to carry it all the 30 kilometers without putting the glacier samples down on the ground, and only then they believe that the artificial glacier will be built. So with this story, why is it that we are talking about, in today's session? The reason being that, if you are talking of Malay Ladakh region, there is a particular phase where there is huge water deficit. Okay. And that also happens to be between, the late months of March and up to the mid of June, which also happens to be the critical phase for sowing, the cultivation. Okay. And immaterial of, when the water comes in and all that, by this particular period of time, the Ladakh region becomes dry. So it has been really hampering the agricultural activities of the region, and the farmers are really distressed even today. So with this background, what they realized is, okay, there is a legend, there's a story, and then there are some, things happening elsewhere also in other parts of the Gilgistan and as well as the other regions now in Pakistan, that people are still cultivating those artificial glaciers. So the Iceman of India comes into picture. He is Shivang Naufal, and Shivang Naufal was a civil engineer. And he realized, going back to the traditions of his ancestors, he got inspired that, and in fact, he actually got inspired when he saw that, there are, especially in the Himalayan regions and all that, the taps are left open so that the water doesn't freeze during the winters and then the pipes burst. So he saw that, because of the freezing, there is the ice sheet that is formed when it touched the ground. He got inspired by this and as well as these stories, the legends that were there. And then he thought, let us also build artificial glaciers. So he built the horizontal artificial glacier. So what he did is that it was important that, the hypothesis that he had was store the melting water from the glaciers in summer and autumn by freezing it into an artificial glacier. And this would melt during spring, providing water to all the farmers and all the other stakeholders. So what he did is from the higher altitude region, he designed canals, and the interest was to divert the water to small catchment areas, which is again north facing the sun, and this is generally typically at 4 kilometers away from the village. And as I said, it is kept in shaded areas, and these are all in certain regions across the altitude, so that the water and the artificial glaciers store enough water for the summers. And through this, he could Chivang Nofal built about 15 artificial glaciers, and the widest was about 2 kilometers long, while the smallest was about 500 feet long. And this meets the requirements of the local artisans within a small period of small area. Now, the more inspiring story comes from the ice zippers of Sonamangchuk. I'm sure all of you are aware of Sonamangchuk, especially I think the Three Idiots. So here, this particular ice zipper again is not only based on the stories of artificial glacier that I shared with you now, and as well as what Chuang Nofel had built, but also the Buddhist stupas. What he realized is, okay, the vertical one, the horizontal ones are good, but then the ice melts very quick, and so the water gets depleted very quickly. But if in case we build something like a stupa, a vertical artificial glacier, perhaps it would take more, longer time for the ice to melt, and it would help, provide water for a longer period of time. So this was the inspiration, and he was able to build this ice stupa as a vertical, even at elevations over 15,000 feet, and the water farmers could get water through this crucial spring planting season. And this ice stupa has inspired not only the Ladakhi population, but also people in Switzerland, Chile, among others, who are replicating this ice stupa. So how is this ice stupa envisioned? First thing is you have the glacier at a very high altitude. So you bring in a pipe to an area which is a little lower in the altitude, and then that pipe is now vertically, kind of put up so that it serves as a sprinkler for the water to come. And during what happens is during winters, the sprinkling ice then becomes the ice stupa. And so the more you add the piping, more water you can also increase the ice as well as the width of the ice stupa. 50-foot ice stupa, that is in figure 4, you see, which can be created in less than a month, shows more than a quarter of a million gallons of water. So what happens is once they are constructed on top of stream beds, during summers, this provides for communal water supply. You can also have something in between to store water for a longer period of time before it is sent to the farmers' training. So even it helps in drip irrigation systems as well. So this is the innovation that Sonam Wangchuk has brought in. So I'll quickly walk you through this video. Sorry. I think there's some problem with the video or the network. I'm not sure. So basically, it is to say that the ice super is made out of this dome-based structures with the pipelines and uh, yes. So, hi, Greg. Almost I'm at the close of my talk. So, as I said, the traditional knowledge, the way our government has envisioned is not only to promote innovation through the national IPR policy and especially TKDL will be playing a big role in this, but also the national education policy where the knowledge of India will also be the basis for education, health, environment, and many other things. In fact, in particular, the IKS says tribal knowledge and indigenous knowledge and traditional ways of learning should also be covered in the education policy, and the areas can be vast and wide. Specific courses in tribal ethno-medicinal practices, forest management should also be like hands-on training to the students. And I'm sure all of you have been able to, get enthused by the different innovations that I have presented, not only our traditional knowledge, but as well as, traditional knowledge from across the world has been used. In fact, they say, reading this, na choraharyam, na rajaharyam, na pratibharyam, na bharakari, vaye krute vardate evam nityam vidyadanam sarvadhana pradana. So it says a knowledge which cannot be, is indeed supreme, which cannot be shared, stolen by the thief, cannot be snatched away by the king, cannot be divided by among brothers. It cannot be a burden, and if it is spent well, it always increases. And I'm sure all of you, with all your help and participation in the Indian knowledge systems, will be able to make sure that our knowledge grows. Thank you so much for your participation and patience. We truly, truly appreciate your support to us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Nurse Vishwaranjan, thank you very much. I think that was very helpful for participants to understand through practical examples how certain of these knowledge traditions have become very relevant for today's times. And also, thank you very much for that session. Can you hear me? Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Anuradha, we can hear you.
So I think now we've come to the end of the theory part of this entire workshop. It's time now for the assessment to happen. So just from the IKS division side, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the entire TKDL team led by Pushpajanani ji. So we're very, very grateful for this very enriching session. And I think this workshop is just the beginning. We'll need a lot of these in the future to ensure that there will be more and more people who understand what to do, what does it really imply, how can it not just benefit the individuals who are deriving knowledge from this, but also those who are the source of these knowledge holders. So thank you very much for those insights and guidance, also by Dr. Anil Kumar ji and also Dr. Vijay Lakshmi ji for this wonderful 5 days of enriching evening experiences for everybody. Like I said, the response for both these workshops has been overwhelming, much more than we ever expected, with over 3,500 participants. And as I said, that's just the beginning, because this is going to snowball into a lot of other ramificatory courses that will come up. I think in time we can conceive of more focused applications as well, discipline specific. So while we can continue offering these broader overview workshops for just an understanding of what intellectual property and people's rights implies, I think with time we will have to evolve more and more specific courses also, because the demand will be there. So I think we are all very excited for that. So thank you very much, and I hand it over to you again if you would like to say something, and then also to Anilji to take over for the sessions.
Sure. Thanks so much, Anuradha. At the outset, I'd like to thank Professor Murthy, you, and all the colleagues at IKS Division for this platform to TKDL. I think probably a few years ago, we would not have imagined this kind of connect with the education sector. And we are as excited as you on this collaboration. We believe we will be able to contribute to the national education policy, and whoever is interested in IKS division, as you very rightly mentioned, this is just to kind of give an overview of, what are the important aspects when we are working on traditional knowledge, just to make sure, just reiterating, when you're talking with on codified traditional knowledge and working with codified traditional knowledge, there are certain aspects that we need to consider. But when we are working with oral traditional knowledge, we need to make sure that we don't hurt anybody's sentiments or their rights. So these are certain of the things that we wanted to convey. And I believe we have done our part. It's an effort which will continue to progress, as we move forward. And we look forward to having more such engagements with all, educational institutes through you, through the IKS, so that, we can make something meaningful and also ensure that there is an impact because of this exercise, because eventually whatever we contribute, we need to understand perhaps if not only the good points, but also the gaps, so that we make better efforts as we move forward. As I said earlier, learning is a lifelong process. As much as we are able to convey matters to you, we are also learning in the process. In fact, just to give you an example of the ice, I was searching all over for the story that connects. All I knew is that it was based on some oral traditional knowledge, but I couldn't get the story. So I had to do a lot of research myself to get my hands onto that particular story. So I'm sure for every endeavor that would be taken up by the participants, there'd be a story that they would like to connect to. And perhaps we will have a forum where we can share each other's insights and experiences as we move forward. Thank you once again. Thanks to all the participants for their warm support. Thanks so much.
Yes, I'll just also take this opportunity to thank all the participants for making the time, and some of them have attended a second time as well. So very grateful for your wholehearted support for the success of this endeavor. And of course, our the IKS division team as well. Piyush has been there morning, evening, ensuring that everybody gets their links. We apologize for the shortcomings with the technical glitches, but I think we're all learning and we're just trying to better every time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anil, you can now take over.
Thank you, ma'am.
Piyush,
Yeah, Piyush wants to say something. Yes, Piyush.
Before we go forward for assessing, I'd like to announce one thing, that is, yeah, I have shared the Google Drive link where everything will be uploaded one by one. So if you, I will request all participants to follow this Google Drive link. And another is regarding certificates. There are two types of certificates will be issued. One is for the participants, and attendance can be considered by area and other rules. So percentage will be taken by both of us. And another type of certificate, that is for assessment, that only will take after now. So I request all participants to save this link. It's important because over 3,000 participants, we are not able to send mails at a time. So please keep this link. I will upload everything one by one. If there is any notification, so I will upload everything in the Google Drive link. Thank you, Pranam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. Just a last thing. We have the national challenges that will come up. So please keep your eyes open on our website. We will announce them on the website. So just keep lookout for the website if you would like to participate in these national challenges for this traditional knowledge, intellectual property, and people's rights aspect. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I will exit. I think Anil and Piyush can now handle it. Thanks so much, Anuradha. Thank you. And my namaste to Prasanna Murthy, and namaste to all the participants. Namaste. Anil.
Sure. To take it forward, now we are in the almost last stage of this workshop. So after 5 days of learning, now we are going to take the test. Okay. So it is a basically question answer based, multiple choice questions will be there. There are 20 questions. And there is no negative mark. This is the best thing. So you can try it. I mean, all questions, they all carry equal marks. And so, I mean, the link for the assessment is in the chat box. So there are basically three sections. In first section, you have to put in your registration details. when you will fill, once you will fill in the details, you will be landed to the assessment page. Okay. So there are 20 questions. All are multiple choice questions. 20 questions. You will be given 30 minutes. And after submitting all the responses, there is a feedback page. So you have to just provide your feedback. That will be helpful for us to plan future programs like this. Okay. So now you all can take the test, and the link is in the chat box. We are taking responses during, in next 30 minutes. After that, we'll stop taking responses. So best of luck. And you
So,
can now.
Aditya, just if you give a time, so if it is starting at
Yes.
4:50.
So this is like 4:50. Okay. So
So
5:20 till
5:20.
5:20 they can submit their
Yes. And then
responses.
they will complete the exam and then it will close automatically. So we are
Close
basically logging
automatically.
out now.
Yes, yes.
We'll all log out now and they'll just complete the exam.
I
Yes,
think
yes.
5:30 would be okay, Anil, because
Yes,
I think
5:30 is fine.
some people are still
Yes.
asking questions. So you'll have
Yes,
to
yes.
keep looking at the chat box and then respond to them, please.
So 5:30 is good, no? So it will close at 5:30. So we are
Yes.
starting out from now, but we are always open to any of your suggestions and any of your communication. So thank you very much once again.
And
Namaste. All the very best.
participants may kindly copy this link and paste on the browser in case it is not working. This is not landing to the correct page. So just copy the link and paste it in the browser. It will open.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
You can stop the live streaming.
Yes, yes,
Now.
please.
Yes.
Dr. Poonam Singh, she's telling